Welcome to Music Notation Basics. This is a course offered by New York Jazz Academy Online. My name is Javier Arau, and I'd like to thank you for taking the time to invest in yourself and really begin a process of understanding much better how music notation works. Now, part of this class will be covering basics, really, just nomenclature, names of notes, parts of the staff, just universal musical concepts. That being said, this class goes far beyond that. You're going to be introduced to all sorts of tips that will help you become a better note reader. I'm going to help you coming up with ways to retain this information. We're also going to apply what we've learned to a bunch of musical examples throughout history, and that's going to be a big help too. It doesn't really do you any good to only sit and watch a video and try to absorb the content of the video. You really have to take it a step farther if you want to become a better musician, and that means applying what you've learned. So we're going to work on that. If you're tuning in to New York Jazz Academy Online, first through this initial video, please make sure you've also visited New York Jazz Academy Online through our website and actually register for this class. It's free, and if you register for it, then you're going to get a whole lot more than just the videos, and this is important. I think already, just the nature of online learning is there's a ton of content already out there, and all you need to do is go to a million different websites, type in a search on how to read notes into YouTube or any other sort of video sharing website, and you're going to find a ton of content, really almost too much information. So it's not a shortage of information that we suffer from. It's really a shortage of mentoring and getting the right feedback from people who know. So if you tune in to New York Jazz Academy Online and register there and actually take the course through the website, then you're going to have access to all sorts of supplementary material, and most importantly, have access to mentors and teachers who can help you with this material firsthand. We've got quizzes that we're posting up there to help you test your knowledge as you develop. We've got plenty of musical examples up there, exercises, and of course the key here is learning really has to be two ways. So it's not good enough just to watch these videos. It's important that you do watch them a lot to master the content, but then beyond that, you have to tune in and really get feedback from teachers. I think that's critical to anyone who's serious about learning music. This music notation class is going to dip a lot into jazz. After all, this is the New York Jazz Academy, so expect to learn not just the note names of the staff, basic rhythms and all of that, but we're going to look at learning how to read a lead sheet, and we're going to look at the nomenclature, the names behind chord symbols, how to read chord symbols, looking at modes and scales. This sounds like it's dipping into a lot of theory. It's not. It's mostly dipping into notation, like the course name suggests. So let's begin. This is topic 1, which is basically a staff introduction. It's pretty simple and very, very important. You're going to be learning tools that will help you learn music more quickly than you've ever learned it before. You may be the sort of player who has only played music by ear. You may have been the sort of player who has learned music simply by watching others, maybe also through other online videos. You may be the sort of player who at one time was taught the notes but really never got it, never really developed your own retention to the point where you felt you've mastered the notes. You may already be proficient at everything, including note reading, and are just looking to brush up and hopefully learn more to help you become even better. So no matter who you are, this will be valuable. We start off with a staff introduction. on page 1. If you go to New York Jazz Academy online and register, you'll also get all of this in PDF form, which is important because you want to be able to take this and actually work not just at your computer screen, but also on your instrument with this material. So first of all, we have 3 simple terms we got to develop here: steps, skips, and leaps. And all 3 of these terms have to do with what happens on a staff. So the question is, what exactly is a staff? A staff is right here. It's these 5 lines that run across the page. We count from the bottom. So the first line is down here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I want you to notice in between the lines are 4 spaces right here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So what we can say is 5 lines, 4 spaces. And I encourage you to really learn that like a mantra, just saying again and again, 5 lines, 4 spaces, 5 lines, 4 spaces. Now on the staff we place notes. Notes are little circles. You probably knew that, I'm assuming. And this first note we're just going to call the first note. And we're going to put it right on the middle line. That's a bit arbitrary. It could have gone anywhere. For instance, the second note is going on the 3rd space. Now, if we start with this note and move to this note, that's called a step up. And we're moving from one line to one space. Stepping is moving from one note to the next closest note. And because a note has to go either on a line or space, naturally we have to move from this line up to this space. This step up could sound like this. Alright? Now, the next thing is a step down. So let's start on the note we just ended on and move down to where we had begun before. So there's a certain sound to stepping. Here's another one stepping up, this time from a space to a line. This is going to sound like this. And the last one here is a step down from a line to a space. Sounds like this. Alright? I want you to notice that with music notation, the music is written from left to right. Okay? This is supposed to be an arrow. Trying to draw this with my mouse here. Much like a lot of written languages move from left to right on the page. Alright? We can play steps up or down at different parts of the of your instrument. You can just take any note and go to the next closest note. So I'll play some more examples. Listen to this. And you probably already heard that's a step up. Let's listen again to it. Let's do another one that'll be a step down, maybe way up high like this. Oh, that was 2 notes, sorry. Here's one. That's a step down. Here's another one down low. That was a step up, right? So those are steps. They definitely have a sound to them. You're going to hear them used a lot in melody. Melody is just moving from one note to the next to form some sort of construction. Now, let's see. Next up, skips. So we'll start with the skip up. A skip, we start with any note. Again, this is arbitrarily just on the 3rd line. And instead of going to the next closest note, which would have been here, that would have been a step going to this. We're not going to go there. Instead, we're going to go to this one. You may notice that if you're skipping, you're moving from a line to a line. You can also move from a space to a space. In that case, you're skipping what would have been a step to this note. Okay. Let's hear how this row sounds. So we'll start with skip up. This is line to line. This sounds like this. Let's see if I can do it. And the skip down from this note to this note. And then skip up from, that was the skip down. Now we do a skip up from here to there, and a skip down. And that was again from space to space. Next up, we got to combine steps, so we're not just going from one note to another. Here we're going to do a bunch of them. We start here. If we went up one step, we just go to here. This time we're going to go from here to here, to here, and to here. So we got 4 notes in a row. We start with the first note, and then let's hear the same thing going down, stepping down 3 notes, starting from here. Alright. Now there's a reason why these middle notes I drew as black notes. It's to differentiate between these outer notes, and here's why. It has to do with what a leap is. If you leap, it's basically like a giant skip. A skip, you're only skipping over one note, so it's pretty tiny. But a leap is anything more than skipping over one. So in this case, we're skipping over this note and this note. We're skipping over both of those, alright? I'm going to call these 2 notes in the middle the jelly filling. I like that because it's kind of like a donut, right? If we take out the jelly filling, we're just left with a donut with a big hole in it. It's like we're moving from this outer part to this outer part. So let's get rid of that middle entirely. And now let's move from just this one to this one. And if we go back to hear what it sounds like when it's filled up, that was all the steps. Take them out and we're left with a leap. Next up, a leap down, starting with the note we ended up. Going back to what it would sound like if we fill it in and without. So you can leap up any number of notes. Let's try leaping up 5 notes next. So we start here and we leap up all the way to here. Again. Now, I'd like you to actually try singing these. And I'll tell you, if I can sing, you can sing. So give it a shot. I really want you to try this with me. Da, ya. Again. Ya, da, 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 da. It's tricky to sing a leap. This leap is huge. Let's try now filling in the middle. And if we do, we're stepping up all of these notes going to the last note. So we start here and we go. And that's it. So that's the end of page 1. That's the introduction of steps, skips, and leaps. Let's move on to page 2 now. We're only dealing with 3 pages in this lesson. So page 2, this is like the bread and butter of note reading. Because here you're going to learn what letter names are, and how each note is labeled with a different letter. So, in order to do that, we have to understand what a clef is. So we're going to learn about clefs in order to really learn more about note names. So let's start with these letters. I want you to notice that the musical alphabet is only 7 letters long. That's it. And the thing is, if you go to a piano has 88 keys. You'd think it needs a lot more than 7 letters. But it doesn't, because what happens is that every time you get to your last letter, after A, B, C, D, E, F, G, the next letter is going to be A again. And this just cycles around again and again, okay? So you get A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. We'll look more at how that cycles and what that sounds like in a second, but in order to understand how all of a sudden this note on the second space is called letter A, and this note, letter B, on the middle line, remember here, when we first started with this note on the middle line, I said it doesn't have a name, it's just called the first note. Now it has a name. It's called letter B, and it always sounds like this. That's the sound of letter B. If you look at this and you go to the piano and you play it, that's what it's going to sound like. This is because of this little symbol here. This is called a clef. And specifically, the treble clef. And basically, every clef, when it's put at the front of a staff, it dictates what the notes are named and what note is what letter. Sometimes what I do, I think this is kind of fun. It's a little silly, but it's fun. So I put a little nose on the treble clef and a couple of eyes, and I call this guy the boss. A little top hat on him. Okay. Looks like. All right. So there's the boss, and the boss says, "Hey, note on the second space, you are forever now known as letter A." And hey, note on the third line, you are forever known as letter B. And that's it. So each one of these notes now has an identity, and it's going to be like that forever. So you can already get busy trying to memorize these that are printed. Up at the top, letter G, that's at the very, very top of the staff. There are notes that go higher than this. The next note would be A, and we're not going to deal with that for a second. We're just going to look at these A, B, C, D, E, F, G. We will deal with right away, right now, with the notes that go below A. So coming down this way, what other notes are there? For that, we need the second line. On this side, all of these notes are the ones from the first line. But these notes this way are new. So let's take a look at these. C, D, E, F, G. Remember, the alphabet just repeats itself. So if you go A, B, C, D, E, F, G, after G comes A. So this makes sense. The G is right before A. And coming down, we're just going to finish the staff. Now, right here, this is the very last note, this D. Very last note that can be attached to the staff. We can't put another note attached to the staff. If we wrote just a circle here, it would be floating. It wouldn't be attached to the staff at all. So instead, what we need is a ledger line. And a ledger line is just like a little addition to the staff. And this way we can put a note right on it. And this note, being one lower than D, is called C. One thing you want to do is get really, really good with saying A, B, C, D, E, F, G backwards. G, F, E, D, C, B, A. G, F, E, D, C, B, A. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. G, F, E, D, C, B, A. Because very often you're going to be playing notes that actually go down instead of up. Let's take a minute and hear what we have so far. So first I'll play A, B, C, D, E, F, G on this first line. Now if I start even lower on C, we're going to go from C, D, F, G, all the way up to high G up there. So now you have how many notes? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 notes. And these are very, very common. Treble clef notes are just enormously common instrument to instrument. I'd like you to note that this C right here is called middle C. If you've ever taken piano lessons, you may have learned this already. We're going to call all of these first notes middle notes, starting with C, moving up. So middle C, middle D, middle E, middle F, middle G, middle A, middle B. Starting here on the C, we're going to call it high C. Now the cool thing is middle C and high C, here's high C, sound very, very similar. Let's listen to C, middle, and then C, high. Let's hear that again. You know, if we start on middle C and we start playing up, and then we keep going, we get to high, high C. So let's hear all three of those. Right? Middle, high, 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 or double high. Now going down from middle C, we get to low. So low, middle, high, high, high. And those are all C's. They really do have a similar sound. Just one is low and one is high. One is even lower, one is even higher. That's the case for every letter. So we have C's, D's, and on that second line right here, you see the D here, and then high D is right here. Okay, so middle D and high D. So let's hear, keep going. We'll do D's, E's, F's, G's. We can keep going up. A. Those are more C's way up at the top. So I think you're getting the idea of how notes are spaced out. As you go up each letter, what you're doing is you're moving up a step. Again, moving always from a line to a space or a space to a line. Let's move on to the next little bit here. The next thing we have is what's called a grand staff. And the new element you probably can notice right away is this clef right here. It's a different clef. It's called a bass clef. And the treble clef is still up at the top, but the bass clef is new. And it's also called the F clef. But the bass clef is going to now be its own boss for its staff, which are these 5 lines and 4 spaces that it's labeling. And all of a sudden the note names are going to be different. Notice this. You started with A on the second space, and it sounded right here. This A did not sound up here. It did not sound here. It did not sound here. It sounded exactly right here in the middle of the piano. Now, A in the bass clef is on the first space, and it's way down here because it's in the bass. So treble clef is called the treble because it's for higher notes, and bass clef is called the bass because it's for lower notes. So A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And again, up top, starting with A in the treble clef, we've got and that's it. So it's a different set of notes down low than it is up high. This can extend all the way up each staff. Here I'm starting on a C. This C in the bass clef is the same as this C. Notice how they're both starting on the second space. And this C is the middle C, so we've got one C sounding here and one C sounding here. Let's hear all of these notes together. That's 12 notes per treble clef and bass clef, okay? That's an overview of the staff. There's a little bit here that you've probably already noticed. These are all ledger lines. Check them out. This is really neat. We ran out of room here on this B. This is the last note attached to the bass clef staff system. A system, by the way, is every time that there's a new staff line. So this is a system, this is a system, this is a system. This is called a grand staff because it's got a treble and a bass clef. And so what we're doing is we're looking at just the bass clef system here. And B is the last note that can be attached to it. If we go above B, which we can, we have to start using ledger lines. Just like we used a ledger line here in the treble clef middle C. Now, in the bass clef middle C, we also have a ledger line. And we put the C right smack through the ledger line, just like this A, which is on the top line, goes smack through it. This F, which is on the fourth line, goes right through it. So the C goes right through that ledger line. The D goes on top of that same ledger line. So D. Now E, we need a new ledger line for E. See how this works? So E's there. F goes on top of that ledger line instead of through it. E went through it. Oh, wait. There's F. And then G. We stop with G. 3 ledger lines, and that's way up here. Now, ledger lines are harder to read. At least to me they are. I think they're much harder than just looking at notes on the staff. But you can get used to them. And if you play an instrument where you have to read a lot of ledger lines, advanced pianos like that. And actually a lot of instruments are. Flute is like that. A lot of stringed instruments are like that. Saxophone sometimes. Less so with trumpet, because this is very, very high in the trumpeter's range, but certainly advanced trumpeters, if you're playing lead in a big band, or even orchestral music, sometimes you've got to get way up here, even higher. Anyway, that's the end of page 2. Let's move on. The next page is page 3, and to do this we gotta kind of slide this over and take a closer look. So we're going to look now at some tips on how to really retain these notes. Here's a concept. This is called using target notes. This will really help you reading. So what's a target note? Here's a nice definition for it right here. Target notes in this example are chosen arbitrarily, and they help facilitate note name retention by allowing the musician to study the notes that surround each target. So what does that mean? It means that any note could be a target note if you just decide that it's going to be for practice. So I've made C, middle C, a target note, and G a target note. So really what you're doing is dividing and conquering. Page 2 over here, this whole page, this is too much information. It really is. So here's what we're going to do. First of all, we're going to be done with bass clef. We're not coming back to it. This entire course is going to be all about treble clef when it comes to actually reading the letter names. The good news is if you play bass or trombone or any other instrument that uses a whole lot of bass clef, this course will still be really, really valuable to you, because I'm going to be introducing not just tips on general tips for note reading, but also, of course, we're going to move to chords, scales, and all sorts of musical concepts that apply, like harmony, rhythm, form, more about melodic construction, and all of that will apply to you too. So hang in there. But for simplicity, and because treble clef is so common, we're going to first of all cross out the bass clef, just focus on treble clef. Not only that, but if you're going to process a page like this, rather than trying to learn, say, all 12 notes at once right here, let's not do that. Let's just start by taking this target and this target and learning those two targets and the 3 notes in between, the jelly filling in between, D, E, F. Okay? So that's what we have here, a target note moving up to G with these 3 notes in the middle. If you go down one staff, you're going to see the same target note and the same target note with the 3 notes in the middle. It's just here we've written out this whole line right here is rewritten with the target notes being white, the jelly filling being black, just again to distinguish what's a target note and what are the notes that you're going to learn leading up to each target note. So on the second line, though, we've actually put in these little bar lines here to separate each example of target note beginnings and endings. So we have C as a target note, G as a target note. If we keep going, we repeat the G. We have the jelly filling of A and B leading up to the high C. Now we start on high C for the last example, and we go up D, E, F, moving up to G. You want to take your instrument and really make sure that you know this note moving up to D, which is a step, moving up to E, another step to F, another step to G. Do the same thing from G to C. Notice that from C to G, the first example, we have 3 notes. From G to C, we only have 2 notes. And the third example is a repeat of the first one, except the notes look a lot different, so they're going to take just as much time to learn. The last little bit is some practice, and this is cool. Basically, there are a few ways you can practice this. You can say, let me practice writing out the letter names. And I guess I'm giving away the first few. It's all right. You do the rest. Okay? So that's the beginning. Another thing you can do is actually play this on your instrument and get to know these notes. I want you to notice that from here all the way to this bar line, we're going to learn more about what a bar line is later once we look at rhythm. This kind of forms a box, and notice the target notes are just moving from this C to this G. So we're just focusing on learning these notes, but we're putting a bunch of versions of them in. Over here, we're using these two target notes, and then we're playing a bunch of notes. Here, I guess I could have labeled this as a open white note, but no matter, it doesn't matter. Sometimes in real music, these are going to be labeled as black notes, and sometimes white notes. So basically, you can go through this and really see if you can get to know the notes better. Let me play this. And then here. It's interesting. These are just exercises, but they actually do form their own melodies. Any sequence of notes moving from left to right will form some sort of melody. The last line sounds like this. And that takes us to the end of the third page. If you'd like to listen to this third page just hearing the notes without any sort of lecture, just make sure you click on the MIDI version of Topic 1, which is, in your whole lesson plans section for the course. You'll see Topic 1 there, which you can just click on, and it'll take you right to the video. Again, I'm referring to New York Jazz Academy online. You can visit this site, which is https://online.nyjazzacademy.com. You can also go to the nyjazzacademy.com homepage. That's a regular HTTP. The S is just for security protocol. And find all of this there and register there. That's no problem. A couple more tips before we wrap up. I want you to notice, going back to octaves, to actually look at what an octave is. We're going to come back to the second page here. The different C's we looked at. We had middle C right here, and then high C. Any of these names that are the same, these are different octaves of the same note. Octave for 8, oct. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And so this middle C is one octave below this high C. Okay, so they're separated by what's called an octave. And I want you to notice that with octaves, no matter which octave you're dealing with, it's the same thing down here, from this C to this C, or let's look at another, like this E to this E. Doesn't matter. We could look at one more, like, let's see. Oh no, let's not do that. We'll just look at these for now. This first C is on a line, the next octave is on a space. This E is on a line, the next octave is on a space. This C is on a space, the next octave is on a line. So these octaves always alternate lines and spaces, or spaces and line. There's no such thing as an octave that goes line to line. There's no such thing as an octave that goes space to space. That's one of the patterns that you'll learn while really getting to know music notation. And lastly, you may have noticed, if you've worked on notation before, that I did not bring up any mnemonic devices. There are sentences that a lot of people teach to learn the staff names. You can look these up. Just type in into Google or YouTube something like staff name or letter name sentences music and see what comes up. I'm just kind of guessing those are keywords that'll bring it up, but they're so common that it'll happen pretty quick. I'll mention what they are, and then I'll tell you why I don't like them. Let's say we start with the bottom line on E. if we look at each note, you know what, I'm going to delete the other circle. So let's start with E here. If we look at each note, moving from E to G, we're going up just on the notes on the staff line to B, to D, to F. There's a sentence that goes with these that might go something like, every good boy does fine. And so a lot of teachers teach that sentence. I won't write it. Anyway, every good boy does fine. There's another one for spaces that goes F, A, C, E. And that one is face, space, right? F-A-C-E spells the word face. And those are all the spaces. Then down here, for the bass clef, there's one that goes all cows eat grass. That's A-C-E-G. And I'll let you look up what the other bass clef one is. You have to start on G here, and you go from G to B to D to F. We'll go one note above the G, and we get to A. Right? So there's another sentence that goes with G, B, D, F, A. And a lot of people say, hey, just learn those sentences, memorize the sentences, and then you'll know all the notes. Here's why I don't like that. Notes are not just there to be memorized. Ultimately, why you're memorizing the notes is to become a better musician. And I think you have to, right away, while you're working on music, start learning notes relative to the notes around them. So I find the target note method here to be one that is going to help you retain these notes much better. It allows you to focus on not just hopping around E, G, B, D, F. I assure you, very few melodies on earth sound like this, which is E, G, B, D, F. So even though that spells every good boy does fine, I don't think it really helps you musically, because when you're actually reading a piece of music, chances are you're going to be on an E, and you might go to the G, but probably next you're going to go to an F, and then another G, and then to a D, then to a C. So getting to know this whole little box here, moving from one target note to the other, keeping it very small, dealing with just a lot of steps, a few skips, and maybe one leap or so, that's going to be helping you train yourself to understand notes in a way that will really, really connect with the music you're going to play throughout your life as a musician. So anyway, that's the simple reason. If you find that the sentences help you, great, go for it. You know, there's nothing stopping you, and I think the more you have in your tool bag, the better. Music is just extremely rewarding to work on, but it can be challenging. So if something can make it easier, like learning some sentences, fine. But here's what I've seen people do. They're learning the sentences, and they're on this note D, and maybe they know what D is, and then they come up to the E, and they think, okay, wait, what's my sentence? But here's what they're missing. It's right next to the D. It's just up one letter from the D. So why are they thinking about, wait, is this all cows eat grass, or is this face, or every good boy does fine? What does that have to do with the fact, this is simpler than that. This is basically you're on a D and you're moving up to E on the alphabet. So get really good at saying your alphabet up to G, which you probably are already an expert at, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. That's this way. And then get really good at saying G, F, E, D, C, B, A. All right? Because you've got to know this alphabet going backwards and forwards, like the back of your hand. So that's it for topic 1. We're going to start topic 2. You can watch the video whenever you want for topic 2 if you're feeling like you're ready. I think it would do you some good to not watch any video after you turn this off and just go right to practicing these letter notes, really trying to get to know them. Spend some time with that. Remember, you can't learn music just by watching a video or having a teacher just give you information. You have to take the time to process it. That could be inconvenient, I know, but it's worth it. So on that note, let's stop it, and I'll see you on the flip side. Practice hard.